Well, it's time for business news on Singapore tonight. Recommendations to help more people in Singapore to become global corporate leaders are now in place. Deputy Prime Minister Heng Keat says developing such talent will become more critical as Asia's GDP is projected to grow to half of the world's GDP within the next 10 years. Proposals include getting people to pursue international opportunities and community networks to accumulate experience. Companies can also attract and retain those with international exposure. There is also a call for the government to step up support to help the families of Singaporeans based overseas reintegrate into the country. These were announced at the Alliance for Action on Business Leadership Development event.
So broadening and deepening leadership skills in our corporate sector will be critical for our economy to thrive, and for us to provide good jobs here in Singapore, for Singaporeans and for those who are coming to Singapore to work with us. And we must stay open to welcoming the best leaders and the best experts from around the world to be part of our team.
For more on this, we have with us in the studio Albert Tsui. He's Executive Director at the Singapore Business Federation. Albert, it is good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Some people reach the top faster than others. It may be as simple as that, and it may take several decades. There's no planned route. When it comes to global talent or the global Singaporean C-suite talent, I mean, we've got TikTok CEO Tsui, and not many other names come to mind. Do we simply not have enough? And if so, why not?
So in developing the insights report that we launched this morning, the Singapore Business Federation actually spoke to more than 200 business leaders, HR practitioners, or even young professionals. And what we find out is that it is very clear that there are amongst us the best and finest of Singapore's sons and daughters out there, leading the charge, helping companies grow, helping companies transform. But due to our demographics, our population base, I think statistically we will always be at a disadvantage. But all the more there is scope for us to periodically review our talent development strategy, as we are doing now, and to really bring together the ecosystem to re-energize the talent development agenda.
All right, we laid out some points earlier with Deputy DPM Heng Keat mentioning some points as well. If you could very quickly take us through what this talent development strategy would be.
So it's like a symphony, right? And for this to play out beautifully, we need to assemble an orchestra. So the Insights report actually outlined the 4 key stakeholder groups that need to act together in tandem. For the individuals, it's really about reminding ourselves as individuals that we need to exercise that leadership muscle for us to be able to develop cross-functional skills, cross-geographical expertise, and also expose ourselves to crisis management, as COVID has taught us. For the businesses, although there are many types of enterprise structures, enterprise types in Singapore, I think there is a commitment that all of us can play a part to be more intentional with the way that we plan succession, with the way that we localize some of the talent pool into Singaporean talents and Singaporean professionals. For trade associations like the Singapore Business Federation, what we need to do is to take a systems view as an ecosystem and bring together different types of network so that we can provide these up-and-coming leaders with different types of opportunities and different access. And of course, finally, as what you mentioned earlier, and we saw from the cutout, from the government side, there is scope for them to look at their toolkit from the incentives or the regulatory levers to encourage individuals and the corporates to move along this journey.
Albert, you've mentioned that Singapore has this diverse environment that specifically perhaps gives it a natural attribute for people in this part of the world to sort of succeed in the spheres or in the areas you're mentioning. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
I think it's quite interesting that Singaporeans, being the humble and mild folks that we are, we don't typically play up the fact that many of us from birth, we are trained with a certain level of savvy to navigate a multicultural, multi-religious and multilingual environment. So if you couple these environment factors with the fact that we are generally a well-educated stock, we are a pragmatic sort of people, not easily swayed by ideology, we get things done, we can see things from a systems level. I think all these attributes and characteristics lend themselves very well to a type of leader that can move in tandem with the entire global economy pivoting to Asia as the gravity of growth.
All right, earlier, one of the proposals we mentioned that came as part of this event was getting people to pursue international opportunities and community networks to accumulate experience.
Yes.
The suggestion behind this proposal, the fact that we need to say it at all, suggests that many Singaporeans perhaps might not want to leave the comfort zone of living and working in a country we were born in and therefore very familiar with. Is that a factor in stopping us gaining the kind of exposure we need to be the kind of leaders we need to be?
I think cognitively, many Singaporean leaders are 100% on board the fact that we need to expose ourselves to multiple markets and multiple functions. But as the panel discussion this morning drew out, moving overseas, having an overseas stint, is really a complicated intertwining of personal factors, family factors, as well as your professional career decisions. There are things like your spousal's career opportunities, whether it's a net gain or net loss. There's also a lot of conversation on what will my children be faced with, overseas. So I don't want to trivialize it, but it is very, very difficult, a decision point for many Singaporeans. And I think it's something that we need to address, like I said, as an ecosystem. Are there ways for us to better reintegrate the children, for example, or the spouse back into the system when they return? And even when they're overseas, are there ways for us to keep that sense of connection with where they deem as home? I think these are all very important factors.
Leadership may well be sort of a process, a nurturing process, but ultimately a decision as well. Thank you very much, Albert, for coming into the studios to talk to us about this. Albert Tsui there from the Singapore Business Federation.
Thank you.